let's continue with this Sunni-Wahhabi dialogue. So this Wahhabi, we're going to confirm that he's Wahhabi. It's pretty clear. As if he was touched or he thought for a moment. So he says, so what is your advice to a Salafi or for a Salafi? So the Sunni says, my advice to a person who calls himself a Salafi, so you notice never submitting to the name. My advice to a person who calls himself a Salafi is to have an open mind and also to learn the history. What does open mind mean? Open mind doesn't mean you believe anything that goes against the Quran or the Sunnah. Open mind means you listen to arguments. You listen to another perspective. That's the meaning of, that's really what having open mind means. Having open mind doesn't mean you have to be open to believe anything. But it does mean, though, that if you're wrong, you're willing to change your mistake. So whatever is definitely correct, like right belief in Allah and His Messenger, there's no compromising here. So he says, my advice to a person who calls himself a Salafi is to have an open mind. And also to learn the history. Like I told you, the early generations after the Salaf didn't call themselves the Salafis. So we're repeating ourselves here. And that's Sunnah, by the way. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would repeat himself 3 times. So for a group that claims to wage war against innovations and to be revivers of the minhaj of old, how do they accept to give themselves a name that no one in history had and deem everyone other than themselves as deviants and not see a contradiction in that? Very strange. You could realize that the people back in the day didn't call themselves Salafis. So you should be able to realize that someone could criticize you for using this name. And you add to that you believe that most of the Muslims have gone astray. So you didn't see a problem there? How that didn't connect for you? That you're the one who's not guided. And if you were to ask most who call themselves Salafis, what country was the Prophet from? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would say Saudi Arabia. Because they do not know the history of how those who currently call themselves Salafis align themselves with the non-Muslims to fight the Muslims and overthrow the country unjustly. No, the Prophet's land was called Jaziratul Arab, the Arab Peninsula, or more literally, the island of the Arabs. Find out how most of the Arab Peninsula became, quote-unquote, Saudi Arabia, and find out who the Saud family is and what their religious affiliation is. And then see if you still accept to affiliate yourself with this new innovated faction. Also, if you understand the history of the scholars and recognize that there are literally tens of thousands of scholars in this nation. Maybe a Wahhabi in his mind is like, there's 100 scholars. Tens of thousands of scholars in this nation. You should realize that being suspicious of a Muslim because he does not follow Ibn Taymiyah is itself suspicious. They don't see themselves for the suspicious people they are. They are very suspicious. They will suspect you from a mile away. How could it be obligatory to follow Ibn Taymiyah when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ما من أحد منكم إلا يؤخذ من قوله ويترك غير رسول الله. There is none of you but that his statements are accepted and rejected except the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This means that the only one from whom we must take all of his statements is the messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So now you should notice something that happened here in this response. So first of all, the Wahhabi asked for advice. So his advice, the advice of the one who's speaking to him, was to have an open mind and to learn the history. So then he just gave him a little bit of idea what he should look for if he goes, or how to look into the history, or which way to go. And then here, shots were fired. Here, shots were fired at Ibn Taymiyah. So what is that? Where'd that come from here? He was asked for advice, and here he fired shots at Ibn Taymiyah. So that's a bait right there. See if he's going to take it. So that means this speaker here, this one who's advising him, he wants to talk about Ibn Taymiyah. And he wants to set himself up in such a way that he's going to stay on the offensive, not defensive, offensive. Wants to keep control of this conversation. So is he going to take the bait here? Let's see. So he says, but who claims that it is obligatory to follow Ibn Taymiyah? So he took the bait. Especially that he posed it as a question. What's his other options here? One of his options is to ignore that altogether. He doesn't have to respond to it. Why does he have to respond to it? Doesn't have to. Like if he ignored that statement there, it's not like he's being dishonest or something. Or he could just make a statement and say, well, I never said such and such, or I don't believe such and such. So then that's a statement. It's not requiring a response from me if he said it that way. So if he said it that way, then that's going to affect how I'm going to respond to him. Because now he didn't invite me to respond to him. So now I'm going to make a decision what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it, or if I'm going to be silent. But in this case here, he posed a question, so that means he's inviting me to respond to him. He says, who claims that it's obligatory to follow Ibn Taymiyah? And now also, depending on how defensive this person is here, then this question is a defensive question. But could be that he's not defensive, so defensive, and he's still asking the same question though. It's the same question, but it's coming from a different place. So he might be saying, wow, whoa, what's that all about? Or he might be saying, no, it's not like that. Well, I'm just going to answer his question as it appears to me. So this one says here, he answers him, the people who call themselves Salafis do not usually say that it is obligatory to follow Ibn Taymiyah. Yeah, they don't pronounce that. But actions speak louder than words. If you test most of them by asking them, what do you say about someone who does not take from Ibn Taymiyah? We can underline that. What do you say about someone who does not take from Ibn Taymiyah? He will most likely be suspicious of such a person and dislike him and rush to label him as a deviant. He doesn't recognize here what's wrong with himself, the Wahhabi. He thinks this is the way the religion is. As for the Sunnis, they follow the Imams of the Salaf. Those who follow Ash-Shafi'i do not distrust those who do not follow him. Someone said, I don't follow Ash-Shafi'i. Okay. As long as you get knowledge from proper source, no problem. Because there are others to be followed. And those who follow Malik do not hate those who follow Abu Hanifa, for example. Instead, they all love each other. That's fact, yani. Anytime someone who follows a madhab meets someone who follows another madhab, he's so happy. Like, oh, mashallah, that's nice. But the way those who call themselves Salafis behave, it is as if all of the knowledge and trustworthiness from before Ibn Taymiyah found its way to Ibn Taymiyah, and all of the knowledge and trustworthiness that came after him goes back to him. By their presentation of the religion, it is as if he is unavoidable. And whoever missed him has missed his deen. So that's how you're going to test a Wahhabi. This is strong here. Now, maybe that's a good place to argue with a Wahhabi, too. Because maybe it would make him, yani, say, no, if he's wrong, I'm not going to accept. So that's good. That's a start. Because another type of Wahhabi will just stop talking to you altogether. He won't say that. The fact is that the scholars of this nation are thousands upon thousands upon thousands. For the people who call themselves Salafis, it is impossible to be guided without following what they call the Salafi da'wah or the Salafi minhaj. And certainly it is absolutely impossible to follow their minhaj without following Ibn Taymiyah. This is problematic. That's for sure. There's no way. That's another way you could pose the question for a Wahhabi. Is there any way I could be on the minhaj without following Ibn Taymiyah? Use minhaj in particular. So, if he says no, then he's got to know his own mistake right there. If he don't know his own mistake right there, Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Maybe he'll go silent there, because he can't say no, but he doesn't want to say yes. So the Wahhabi says, then what is the difference between Ahlus-Sunnah and the Salaf? Now, if this is his question, after all of what we said, this means, looks like to me, he's thinking about what's being said to him. He's trying to process it. Because this question means he backed up a little bit. And so, the Sunni answers him, the Salaf of this nation are a part of Ahlus-Sunnah. Ahlus-Sunnah includes the companions and those who follow them, and they are the majority of the nation. Ahlus-Sunnah, that's the majority of the nation. The Salaf is a part of Ahlus-Sunnah. In general, the greatest authorities of Ahlus-Sunnah are the Salaf, who are the first 3 generations, or the first 3 centuries. You can say it this way or that way. The people of Ahlus-Sunnah after the Salaf are called the Khalaf, not the Salafis. If those people were really Ahlus-Sunnah, and they were following the Salaf and using a name that Ahlus-Sunnah used for those who were after the Salaf but following their way, they would just call themselves the Khalaf. They would say, we are the Khalaf. That wasn't even good enough for them. So they say, we're the Salafis. They invented a name. So the Wahhabi says, okay, I see. You are saying that the group to follow is Ahlus-Sunnah. Okay. And that the Salaf is a part of Ahlus-Sunnah. And that the Salafis don't really follow the Salaf. Now, before that, your standard Wahhabi should understand this. The group to follow is Ahlus-Sunnah, and the Salaf is part of Ahlus-Sunnah. They are the forerunners. So Wahhabi probably knows that. This one here, he's saying it back. So it's like we're just making sure everything's clear in the book form here. So he's running it back, but this is what he probably should already be knowing if he's just really a Wahhabi. He could still be Wahhabi here, but he's missing things. He says, and you're saying that the Salafis don't really follow the Salaf or Ahlus-Sunnah. Yeah, there you go, right there. That's deep. So I'll probably would just be shaking my head right there. You got it. You were able to come to that conclusion on your own. Now, what is this business about Allah exists without a place? So he had some things on his mind. So, okay. The Sunni answers him. This is the correct creed taken from the book, the Sunnah, the sound mind, and the Salaf certainly repeated it and verified it. In simple words, this answer, like if it's real life, this answer is like he's saying, it's the truth. Yes, that's right. Allah exists without a place. It means that Allah is not existing in any place. All directions, including above, do not pertain to him. They don't contain him. He does not fill a space. And he's not a body with dimensions and volume. And this does not mean that he is everywhere. So this answer here, this answer attempted to make the issue clear for the one who's asking. So he said approximately the same thing in different ways. He said, it means that Allah is not existing in any place. So Allah exists without a place. He's not existing in any place. He just reworded it slightly. All directions, including above, do not pertain to him. So he said same thing again, but in different words. He does not fill a space. Same thing in different words. But every time you change the words, each word gives its own understanding. So that's how it modifies his understanding. That's the difference between just saying the same exact words over and over again and then saying it in different words. He is not a body with dimensions and volume. The same thing too. Then this last sentence. And this does not mean that he is everywhere. That sentence is there to cut off a Wahhabi. So this answerer, he has experience with Wahhabis. So he knows that Wahhabi would, once he hears this, going to say, so what you're saying, Allah is everywhere? So he cut him off before he even said it. And this doesn't mean Allah is everywhere. So he says, so you're saying that Allah is nowhere? So it looks like he would have said, what you saying, Allah is everywhere? But he cut him off before he said it. So he says, so then you saying he's nowhere? So the Sunni answers him. So the answer is yes or no. How does he answer him? He says to him, nowhere means not in any place. So that's equivalent to saying yes. But he said it out in words so that it's clear. Because this question here, you probably could sense that it could carry some sarcasm in it. Or it could carry some skepticism in it. You're saying he's nowhere? Yani, it's possible to really be a true question. Oh, this is what I understand from you. Are you telling me? Can you confirm for me my understanding? You're saying that God is nowhere? So the answer is yes. So if he's asking like that, then we could say yes. And then you say, okay, that's clear. But the one who's answering, he's not giving this one that much of good thought. That is just this way. Because if he just says yes only and he's reading the emotion wrong, then the Wahhabi will respond with something else. So he didn't want to give him an answer that doesn't address his emotion, possibly his possible emotion behind the question. So instead of just saying yes, he said nowhere means not in any place. But that really means yes. That's what I'm telling you. He existed before he created places, and therefore he was not anywhere. Before he created places, there was nowhere for him to be. This means there was no above or below before he created them. Before he created up, down, left, right, front, and behind, he existed. And there was literally nowhere. So he existed, and there was nowhere. So yes, I am saying that Allah is nowhere. So now this one, he wants to have some integrity in his method and give him straightforward answer. It's not his practice to be like the dishonest ones. So he gives him a straightforward answer to his question. He just didn't advance it. And we did see a spot up above previously where he did dodge a question, and we talked about that. He dodged the question in that instance in a way that's not dishonest, though. When is dodging the question dishonest? Dodging the question is dishonest when answering the question directly disproves you. And you don't want to be disproven. You want to continue to argue. So instead of answering the question, you avoid the answer. But in that case, we avoided his question, again, out of trying to gauge his delicacy. Not to avoid answer, not to avoid the truth. At that spot, we could have just answered him. Maybe it would have been abrupt or harsh on him. Unless you're a nice person, you know how to say things in a nice way. Right here, the answer was not avoided. The answer wasn't avoided. But it was just formulated in a way to stop another argument that might come. If I answer with the plain answer, I don't want you to take that and go somewhere else. So to stop you from going there that way, I want to keep control of this conversation here. So I'm going to answer you this way. So yes, I am saying that Allah is nowhere, meaning existing without a place. However, if you mean by saying, you are saying that Allah is nowhere to belittle what I am saying, then you're belittling what I am saying, and you're changing my statement, Allah exists without a place, to Allah is nowhere, does not change the fact or weaken my argument. It is a powerful truth. I suggest you ask your questions with the intent to learn and not to try to humiliate. So right there, that was this speaker making the decision to check that person in case he meant disrespect. You don't have to check him, though, if he means disrespect. That might go back to your personality. Because some people are easygoing, and some people are not as easygoing. And some people are soft, yani. So it doesn't, something like that doesn't, for them, doesn't matter. They don't care. Another person, he wants you to be mindful of how you deal with him. Yani, to keep your own respect in mind. Keep yourself in check when you're dealing with him. But sometimes that type of thing, it is important. Because here's not really shouldn't be an issue of your own ego. But, for example, one might say something like this in defending the religion. This is his intention here. He's saying, I'm defending the religion here. So your tone here, your question here, if this is what you mean, you need to check yourself. We're talking about the religion here. That's better than him saying, you don't know who you're talking to, buddy? Nah, this is not the best way. So, and here when he says, however, if you mean by saying, You are saying that Allah is nowhere to belittle what I am saying by saying that this speaker is making that other one aware that he catches his implications too. You don't have to do that. A lot of times, good for you not to do that. Someone makes some implications for you. A lot of times, you just catch those only. That's all. You don't have to comment on them. That one, that's the one you're going to wind up embarrassing him one time. But here he made it clear for him. If you're insinuating, I'm catching your insinuations. I want that to be clear for you. Because look how you're changing my statements. I said Allah exists without a place. You said, so you're saying Allah is nowhere? So maybe you're asking me that just for clarity. You processed what I said to you. That's what it amounted to. So you're asking me to verify for you your comprehension. Yes, correct. But maybe you are belittling what I'm saying to you. So if you are, you should check yourself here. This is a religious issue. It is a powerful truth. So the Wahhabi says, well, didn't Allah say that he's above? Here, now if you learn the rules of blasphemy, the sirens went off. Because it sounds like he's saying, Allah is in a place. So, what's the case here then of this question? First of all, it's not an explicit declaration. Meaning, he's not explicitly saying here, Allah is in a place. So that's one thing. That's just a fact. This is a question. So, as for being explicit declaration, exclude that. Yani, remember, blasphemous statements are explicit and apparent. Explicit and apparent. So what would be, if this were explicit, what would it be? It would be him saying, Allah is above, in a place. Allah is in a location. That's explicit. He didn't say that. But still, one might wonders. But the question, is it strong enough to be kufr? Alright, it's not explicit declaration. So the rule is, if the statement can bear more than one meaning according to the language, then you don't deem the person as a kafir. But you might still be concerned here. You say, okay, he didn't make explicit declaration. Okay. And yes, the statement could have more than one meaning because it's a question. Okay, but I'm still concerned. And why I'm still concerned here, because I feel like it's the context of the conversation that's making him ask me this question. So is it kufr? So if it were me, I'm not going to say that's explicit kufr. Because possible he's testing me. It's possible that he didn't until now say an explicit kufr. Now it's possible that he's testing me and that he doesn't believe kufr, actually. There's a hadith like that, which is the hadith of, it's a hadith mawquf. It's a hadith of Sahabi, which is the hadith of Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali. He's the tabi'i telling the story. When he said, Imran ibn al-Husayn, he's mujtahid. Imran ibn al-Husayn. You know who he is. You know his hadith, the hadith of Imran ibn al-Husayn. He said this special Sahabi, alim, master, he said, he asked me, do you see what the people are doing today? They're going back and forth. Is it a destiny that has come to pass? Or is it something that they encounter in time without that being destiny? So then Abu al-Aswad answered him. He told him, In fact, it's destiny. So Imran said to him, أَفَلَا يَكُونُ ظُلْمًا? Wouldn't that be injustice? It's like the same sort of question, the form of the question. Because seems like it's affirmation. He's not confirming it though. Abul Aswad said, I was very disturbed by this question. So just like probably you're feeling now in this discussion. He asked you this and you say, what is this question here? Abul Aswad said, I was very disturbed. I was repelled by this question. And in the end, Imran told him, Jazakallahu khaira. May Allah reward you with good. I did not intend by what I asked you, but to test your intellect. And then he told him a hadith. In that hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded the way Abul Aswad ad-Du'ali responded. So he asked Abul Aswad ad-Du'ali about something that came in a hadith, but without telling him that it's in the hadith. So Abul Aswad ad-Du'ali answered the way the Prophet answered. But he was annoyed though by that questioning, that line of questioning. So after Imran got out of him what he wanted to get out of him, then he told him, all I meant to do was test you. I wanted to test your intellect. And then he told him the hadith, and the Prophet responded just like how Abul Aswad did in the hadith. So that's why if it were me, up until now, I would not deem this person a kafir. But I'm so scared for him. It's like thin ice here. So the Sunni answers him. Allah said that he is fawq, above, and that he is Ali, high, but he did not say that he is high in a place or above by direction. You can shorten that answer. You could just say, he didn't say he's in a place. So Wahhabi says, didn't he say he's above folk? So if you say yes, then what's going to happen? Then he's going to say, therefore. So you don't want to give him control of the conversation. But plus, not to mention that the question here is not clear. This question is, in reality, it's not clear. How is not clear? Because we know that this Wahhabi, he's asking while he's ignorant. He's asking about a word that can be taken more than one way. He only knows one way to take it. And he's asking us if it was used. He's asking us if a word was used while he only knows one way to take the word, maybe, which is the wrong way. So you say, yeah, it was used, but you can't ignore the fact that he's, we're afraid here, at least in the case of this guy, that he's ignorant. So we don't want him to take this and go the wrong way with it. So if you said, yes, he did, let's say he said, didn't Allah say he's folk? So if you say, yes, he did, and you stop there, yes, period, stop, full stop. So now he can take control of this conversation if you stop like that. So really then, what did the Sunni do? He gave an answer that's clarifying the potential lack of clarity that's in the question. So while the question itself needs a yes or a no, but this answerer didn't see that it's appropriate for him to directly answer the question with the yes or the no. At least not at first. We can see what's going to come. He saw that it's better to address the potential lack of clarity in the question itself, the question that requires a yes or a no. So the way he did that was to bring out the exact issue. So he said, Allah said that he is fawq. So if you're asking me about just the mere wording, it's like he's saying, if you're asking me only about the phrasing, he said he is fawq. And he said he is Ali. But he did not say that he's high in a place or above by direction. If you want, you can take out those words, high and above. But he didn't say he's in a place. He didn't say he's in a direction. So, if you want to shorten all this answer for this question, he says, didn't Allah say that he's above? So you could say to him, he didn't say he's in a place. So now, if you said that to him, he didn't say he's in a place, that means you didn't confirm or deny. And what you did was, you declared what he didn't say to refute what might be coming, to what might be implied. To bring out what he might be attempting to hide also. Because the Wahhabi wants to forbid you from saying Allah exists without a place, but he doesn't have a text that says Allah is in a place. And he will impose on you, he will insist that you produce for him a text that says Allah exists without a place explicitly from the Quran or the Sunnah, while he does not have an explicit text from the Quran or the Sunnah that says Allah is in a place. So, okay, I think that's clear for you. So how's he going to respond to that? He's going to say, but he said he's above. So above doesn't have to mean place, though. Above doesn't have to mean place, because above can mean status. So he said if you want to say above or fawq, he said so. He didn't say what you're implying, what you might be implying there. So that's why it's important to understand the difference between the mafhum, what's understood, and the mantuq, and what's pronounced or what's stated. So what's stated, those are the words that are actually said. The words that are actually said, sometimes they're explicit in what they mean, and sometimes they can be taken in different ways. But the actual mantuq, the actual wording, phrasing, is the words that was said. The mafhum is not what's said. The mafhum is what you can formulate from what was said. The mafhum is something that you could say from what was not said. Or from what was said. Something that you could say derived from what was said. It's mafhum. What's understood. So the Sunni says, Allah said that he is fawq, above, and that he is Ali, high. But he did not say that he is high in a place or above by direction. Those are the additions of the people who call themselves Salafis. He's saying that's the bid'ah right there. That's the heresy. You need to understand that aboveness and highness both have two meanings. The literal physical meaning and the figurative meaning of status and greatness and majesty. So, God is high, or God is most high, for example. Someone might say that statement, and it means he is majestic, and he is the greatest. As for the literal physical meaning, that is the impossible meaning. This statement, this is what should be shaking that Wahhabi. When you say this here, that's going, if he's real Wahhabi, it's gonna cut his heart. As for the literal physical meaning, that's the impossible meaning. This one's gonna make him ball up. Because Allah is not like his creations. As he said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Nothing is whatsoever like him. So he's not physical, and he's not a body contained and restricted to directions like we are. Now these answers We see the answers are generally bigger than the questions. But don't forget, when you talk to a person, even when you give a lesson, keep your statements brief, streamline them, and clear. Make them clear and streamlined so a person can just understand. Now, part of what's here is that this is written. So what comes out in writing doesn't always come out like speaking. It is said that the scholars' written answers are usually more exact than his improvised answers. When I say improvised, I mean off the top of his head. I don't mean he's fabricating. Just he's thinking, without thinking ahead, he gives you an answer. Let's say it's correct answer. They said, though, when he writes, it's usually he's going to be better because that's more thought he puts there. It takes more time. So these answers here are written out as if it's a conversation, and it could be, but maybe if it's real life, will be a little looser. Let's stop there.